Welcome back to Drowned City Theorycrafting for the newest Arkham expansion. I'm rather incoherent. Today we're talking about Michael McGlen. I'm only going to be covering my version of Small Guns Michael today. I personally think Big Guns Michael is simultaneously much more dangerous and not any more effective, so I just view it as kind of the inferior but different version of this deck in case you want to have fun with Gatling Gun. Nothing wrong with that, but I don't find it interesting, so I won't be covering it. Let's start by covering Michael McGlen for those who are unfamiliar with him or who have forgotten him since the spoilers. And as always, I feel like I learn characters better by starting with their deck building. Deck size 30, Rogue 0 to 3, Fens Restriction, Neutral 0 to 5, and cards with firearms either as their trait or in their text box level 0 to 5. I actually kind of dislike this deck building a lot. When I first saw this, I was hyped. I can play any firearm in the game, and there are certainly cool combos that unlocks. But Rogue 0 to 3 Firearm is a card pool with veritably no draw. And if you know me at all, you know that I love draw cards. This is a deck that has to get consistency the old-fashioned way. You want to find a gun, you better run a lot of guns. You're not just going to draw your cards to find the ones you want. And yeah, that makes me sad. However, getting access to every firearm and every upgrade that cares about them and every event concerned with them is good. Rogue 0 to 3 gets the vast majority of rogue cards that are generically useful. This is not bad deck building, it just doesn't personally appeal to me. His stat line, however, appeals to everyone because it's insane. This is Mandy's stat line for fighters. 3 head, 3 foot, balanced, good mythos stats, 1 book, nothing wasted, 5 fist, great proactive 5. Split is 9-5, which is unfortunate. A 5 and something is always scary. And in the thick of it world, you expect to have 6-6. This guy's got 7-5. A little bit scarier, not a big deal. His ability is after you spend 1 or more ammo from a firearm asset, gain 1 resource, limit once per firearm asset per round. So you can get a lot more resources by running a lot of small guns, and it very neatly feeds into itself to 1, have all the guns basically pay for themselves, and 2, have some of the guns actually generate quite a lot of resources. His star is +2, you may place 1 ammo in a firearm asset you control. Frankly, I think this star is blank. I don't think it does anything. I've only played 1/4 of a campaign with the guy so far. But realistically, placing an ammo on a firearm asset, if you're a small guns deck, they don't do that much. If you're a Gatling gun deck, it doesn't do that much on a Gatling gun, right? This can be life-saving in the exact right circumstance, but in the vast majority of situations, I'm like, oh cool, 1 more bullet. What's it for? I've got plenty of bullets. I'm loaded with bullets. I need other shit. So very genuinely, I don't think this does anything. I know it can save a life. It can be amazing. But in a game of percentages, this percentage is not happening often. I will say, at least it's universal. You just always get the ammo. It's not like you have to get it during a fight. I just don't value placing an ammo on a firearm asset very much at all in a character built around spamming out firearm assets and shooting nonstop. I already have enough ammo. That's the whole point. So what's the character do then? Well, he's very effectively murdering people. It's not that hard to fix his mythos phase. And he has a ton of resources with which to murder people. That's pretty much it. Not very complicated. Let's see what we can do with it. And this is what I cooked up for small guns. Why are we playing small guns? We need to cover his signature weakness immediately. Confiscation. Revelation, shuffle each firearm asset in your play area into your deck. If no asset was shuffled into your deck by this effect, take 1 damage and shuffle confiscation back into your deck. So eventually every firearm you played will get shuffled into your deck, which sucks. On the one hand, thanks cops, I guess you reloaded my guns in a really roundabout way, but on the other hand, if this happens during a dangerous fight, whether it be an enemy pileup or just a boss, this can be really detrimental. This is very scary for a fighter. However, there are cards that help you play around this. Originally, I was theory crafting about using like friends in low places to scry the top 9 and then put confiscation where it needs to be, or play with several consecutive turns of knowledge that I will not be hitting confiscation. That's one way to do it. Another way you can do it is just by playing around it very cleverly in a high draw deck with stuff like Lucky Cigarette Case, and then being okay when it hits you. The best way to play around it is another new card though. Just to have them both in one place though, I want to cover Viola Case before we get to the best answer to the weakness. Viola Case is a 2-cost accessory asset competing with Cigarette Case. Commits for pretty much anything you're ever going to want to do. You don't really want a book on this, but you don't want to commit it either. While you have this in play, you get 2 additional hand slots which can only hold firearms. What else were you going to hold? That's basically not even a restriction on this guy. Reaction: after you play Viola Case, search the top 9 cards of your deck for a firearm asset and add it to your hand to shuffle your deck. That's a bit of anti-synergy with an Underworld market. But as you're about to see in this deck, I never got an Underworld Market, have no plans of getting an Underworld Market, and the deck's fairly expensive already, just rogue things. So honestly, I like this. I think it's a good design for a signature. It pushes you away from Cigarette Case, away from Underworld Market, into a more unique place that has less overlap with Tony. Let's get into solving that weakness though, because Confiscation is terrifying. Shuffle every asset I care about back into my deck is not the text I want to see, but Robert Castaigne might be one of the strongest allies in the game. There's a level 0 version of this guy. Honestly, it's not great. I didn't even run him. I don't think the level 0 version is good at all. It's a +1 fist bonus, but it's competing with Lonnie Ritter and Infinite Soak at level 0, so just pick him up once you have Charisma is what I did. It's what I'd recommend. This guy is crazy. 3 cost, 4 experience, 2/2 Soak ally. You get +1 fist, so for a +1 fist ally at 3 resources, that is like very good soak rate. You wouldn't expect his ability to be that good, having seen this already. His ability is one of the best in the game. Lightning Bolt exhausts Robert, fight. Reveal a firearm asset that takes up 1 or fewer hand slots from your hand. Resolve a fight ability on the revealed asset, ignoring all cost. Then you may either discard the revealed asset to draw 1 card or play that asset paying its cost. So first, this is a Lightning Bolt fight with a card in your hand you haven't played yet. That just directly sidesteps Confiscation. If there is a gun in your hand, you can fight with that gun. Beyond just dealing with your weakness though, this is Lightning Bolt deal 2 damage, right? Every one-handed firearm is going to be dealing 2 damage. So this is Lightning Bolt deal 2 damage. That's incredibly action efficient. That's insane. That is like on par with Beat Cop. I would say better than Beat Cop, right? Because Beat Cop is testless, but only deals 1 damage and costs you something. And you might be like, oh no, this costs you something, you have to discard the gun. That's not actually what it says. If dev clarification comes out, I'll start ruling it that way. But then you may either discard the revealed asset to draw 1 card, or play that asset paying its cost. I also may not. I'm just not gonna discard it or play it. I'll just keep the fucking gun in my hand and do it again next turn, right? Which gives this card so much flexibility. Additionally though, if I'm using this guy, there's a very real chance that I just have an empty gun on my board I'm happy to replace either way. And while I really don't want the devs to say that that you can't hold the gun, that you have to discard it because it makes the card so much less good and so much less flexible, it wouldn't kill the card. It would still be quite good. Right now though, that flexibility is really important because it lets you hold empty guns on your board, use this guy, and save up for some burst turns with some other new cards. Specifically, the upgraded Remington model 1858. It does commit for 2 fist, 2 foot, which is great. You're not committing 4 experience cards, let's not kid ourselves. This thing only costs 2, comes with 3 ammo. Spend 1 ammo, fight, you get +2 fists for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. Totally bog standard rate, not a 4 experience weapon at all. But reaction, when it enters or leaves play, immediately trigger the above action ability, ignoring all cost. This is actually 5 shots for 2 damage, which is still bad, but 2 of those shots are essentially lightning bolts. So if you use Robert, you flash your gun and it's the Remington, and then you play it, you're going to shoot the Remington a second time immediately when it enters play. Exactly the same if you use Robert, flash a different gun, and then play it discarding the Remington because you're at hand slot maximum, then you're going to shoot the Remington for a free action as it leaves play. This isn't just 5 bullets for 2 damage, this is 2 free action 2 damage attacks, and it's actually insanely powerful. I will note though that Robert has some sort of designed anti-synergy here with some of the best stuff in Michael. First of all, you're ignoring all costs on the gun he flashes, so it's not spending ammo and it's not generating resources. Second of all, the gun he flashes isn't in play yet. So when you use him for Lupara, by the way, I'm not memeing, I don't even think it's a fun card, I think Lupara is just one of the best cards in Michael. When Robert uses the Lupara, it only deals 2 damage before it enters play. On the Lightning Bolt Robert action, it deals 2 damage because you haven't played it yet. And then when it enters play, it'll start shooting for 3 damage. And that's fine, it's still Lightning Bolt deal 2 damage, I'm not upset about it, but it is notable there is specific anti-synergy with Robert and the other cards on the deck. Even though he's still incredible, you have to watch out to not cheat with a 3 damage Lupara shot or give yourself a bunch of resources you shouldn't have. Speaking of resources you shouldn't have, one of these guns you can use is the Mulzer. It's going to have 5 ammo that can convert easily to 5 resources, and then if you don't need to shoot it twice in 1 turn, you can very frequently get several more resources out of it than that. The Mulzer just contributes this massive pile of ammo you're getting. You get 5 ammo here. The 45 automatic just barely pays for itself. The Luger is the hypest part of generating ammo. The Remington also pays for itself just because it's cheap, but the Luger is an incredibly strong card. I knew this would be good. I underestimated how good it would be. It deserved a top 10 spot on my list. I regret not putting it up there with Robert. I thought Robert would cover the whole archetype. Luger is great on its own merits. Luger's a dirt cheap 2-cost hand asset gun, uses 2 ammo. Lightning Bolt, exhausted, and spend 1 ammo. Fight, you get +1 for this attack. It only deals 1 damage, not particularly impressive, but it is free action damage. And its timing window is whenever the hell you want to. You don't have to do this during your turn. You can do it before you start your turn and kill the rat your Kluber got. You can do it during the enemy phase with 2 Lugers and shoot a 2 health hunter that's coming into your location. And 2 ammo would be a serious problem if it were not for action, spend 1 resource, replenish all ammo on Luger PO8 and ready it. So every time you empty the Luger and reload it, it's generating 1 resource. The first time you're down 1, and after that you're slowly gaining money with it. But it's really not about generating money here, it's about just getting an insane amount of damage out of the Luger during lightning bolt windows. If you find yourself in a spot with Robert Castaigne in play, a gun in hand and 2 Lugers on board, you can just deal 4 damage on lightning bolts every single turn, and it's a ton of damage. Typically, I haven't been there. I've always had just 1 Luger in play and been thrilled about it. Honestly, reloading both of them sounds like it might be a bit of a hassle and not worth. So with Small Guns Michael, the original fear would be like, oh, how do you deal with big enemies? But with the Luger for lightning bolt damage, the Remington for lightning bolt damage, Robert Castaigne for lightning bolt damage, you just have it handled. I will say the Viola case is really important. I would have loved to run a backpack in this deck, but my Mythos stats are not incredible on a baseline. I felt like I had to run Lonnie, I had to run Heavy Furs. Just getting the insane fist values, getting the infinite soak combo of Lonnie plus Heavy Furs, that all felt very good. Very importantly, I wanted a 1 of Well Connected, and this has been a star of the deck. I'm not ever planning on being a big money deck. Well Connected is just good enough on its own. You don't want a second one, because if you draw both, it's terrible, and if you play one early, you're not going to be able to do much with it because you're busy spending all your money on guns and shit. But if you play one of these around the mid game, I've consistently found that I'm able to find it by then, play it by then, and then it's basically +2 on every Mythos test. It makes you tremendously better against Mythos phase. A 1 of Well Connected with all the resource generation on Michael just feels really good. Sadly, after we get out of the massive pile of assets, because a lot of these guns don't get played and a lot of these assets only need 1 going into play, we end up with a fairly small 9 events and 4 skills. And we are running 2 You Handle This Ones and Guts and Manual decks, because I was really worried about dying on Michael and Innsmouth. It felt very, very sketchy. It feels like I really wanted Guts Manual decks, and one of the reasons I ended up not going big money is I wanted to be able to find card slots for Guts and Manual decks. You Handle This One's just good enough. Easy Mark, Falsian Bargain, the best economy events, and I'm running Where's the Party. There's just not very much draw at all available within Michael's card access. Where's the Party is one of the few cards I have access to in that regard. Spawning an enemy exhausted gives me so much time to deal with it as Michael, and it just, well, there's a Lucius on my team as well, so it can help Lucius by getting it out for him if I don't need to kill the enemy. But more importantly, it's just a way to find a guy to kill and draw some cards to do something, right? Because if I don't have Where's the Party, I'm not finding clues. I'm not providing team support. I frequently talked about how Nat Show was just a monster killer and that could only be so good before I discovered how strong he was, allowed him to play a support Nat Show that still killed all of the monsters. That's largely how I view this version of Michael, where all I can do is kill monsters. I have no support, but I'm so strong against the Mythos because of Infinite Soak, my base stats, the Guts, the Manual decks, the Well Connected, the You Handle This One. There's so much going on with the Mythos resilience that I think this probably compares favorably to a just straightforward monster fighting, no support Nat Show. And I think it's a really strong, really effective deck. I've had a lot of fun playing it, although I haven't quite gotten to play this version. I will briefly cover, we have some permanent cards. We need a Charisma for both allies, Another Day, Another Daughter, generically good, and Locked and Loaded is new. It's a bells and whistle card, but it's a good one. All of your firearms interplay with 1 additional ammo on them, sign me up, that's just generically good. Coming down to the starter deck though, it looks surprisingly similar. I'm not a big fan of 2-handed weapons here, but there wasn't a good one-handed weapon for my 5th one-handed weapon, and I'm going to be cycling through them constantly. I'm going to need them constantly. I ended up going with a 45 Thompson as my final slot for my level 0 weapons to upgrade it into the Lupara down the line, and I've been pretty happy with it. It is very expensive, it is a little bit clunky. I wish it were something else, but I couldn't find a gun I would have a better time with in this. I think this is the one questionable card in the starter deck. We only have Lonnie Ritter, no Charisma, no Roberts. We still have the one of well connected, and to make up for our missing ally because everything else directly upgrades, it's just quick thinking. It's a great card, hard to say no to it. I'm missing Robert, I'm missing the upgraded Remingtons, I'm missing the Lupara, I'm missing so many ways of getting lightning bolt damage, so quick thinking is the obvious thing to add in at level 0 to get back some of that instantaneous damage. And this deck plays, I imagine, exactly like the late game deck plays, except without Robert Castaigne. Having gotten Robert Castaigne in scenario 2 and played with it, I've got to say this dude's incredible. It's the reason to play this deck like this. He feels like one of the strongest cards in the game, and it's very fun to play this character because of Robert. I'm looking forward to trying to make Robert work on literally anyone else. A big part of why it feels strong is the way it combos with the Remington specifically. I will say, I've been pretty hyped on Michael. I've been thinking that Robert basically just steals the confiscation. Just the small guns play pattern is good enough against confiscation. I want to be clear, as positive as I'm sounding about Michael right now, I've gotten horrifically unlucky in game. My first game, I started off by drawing a card with easy mark on turn 1. I drew confiscation and took a damage. I played a gun to set up, then in my upkeep phase, I drew confiscation and shuffled it back in. So on turn 2, I was like down 2 cards and no guns. Both of my teammates drew enemies. It was a nightmare. In my second game, I don't remember the exact order because it wasn't so front loaded, but I drew the thing that follows as like 5 of my 11 draws. I never got confiscated, but I was just hilariously deprived of card draw in that second game. I've had pretty bad RNG with Michael. We've had crazy enemy pileups. I've had awful RNG with my weaknesses. And in spite of that, he's felt like he was just a completely sufficient fighter that could handle everything being thrown at him. I think he's rock solid, like easy A tier, very, very good. Confiscation does ruin my hype a little bit. It makes me less interested in like building another deck and experimenting. But if you wanted to play big guns, it's not that hard to like branch this out into big guns, right? The question I would have for a Gatling gun deck isn't what to cut. It's, are you trying to find Viola Case to get more hand slots? Or are you just trying to have one big gun at a time and run like stuff like Swift Reload? Does Robert Castaigne still fit? Probably not if you're running a Gatling gun. So yeah, this deck is 38 experience, but if you want to run a Gatling gun, we're cutting 3, 7, 11, 22 of the 38, which is a pretty small deck to fit Gatling guns in at that point. So it's pretty easy to make a Gatling gun Michael. I just don't really know how I'm reliably finding the Gatling gun and what I'm doing about confiscation if that's what I want to do, because Robert's not just a power card, it's an answer to the weakness that makes this character terrible, and it's so smooth and so strong, and I love it to bits. I've been sloppy about covering Upgrade Pass. This one's pretty straightforward. You immediately get Robert and Charisma, nothing else matters. After that, the world's your oyster. Probably get the guns you're using with Robert though, because like, what else are you doing? This character is brain dead simple. He just shoot guns at man. That's it, that's all you do. But he's very fun to play entirely because of this Robert play pattern. It's so much more engaging than the like standard pattern of I hit with Runic Axe, or I counter hit with Survival Knife, or I shoot with Big Gun. There's so much more like minor movement happening with Robert. As an example, right? An enemy walks into your location on Hunter phase, you pop him with the Luger, you flash a different gun with Robert, you deal 3 damage and drop him in the enemy phase. It's the thing that Parallel Skids is doing, except instead of having to gamble because you're a rogue to start doing anything with specifically quick thinking committed, it's just like, no, fuck you, I'm killing you. I don't care that I wasn't there during your turn. We're doing it now. Robert and Luger just play so incredibly well together, and it makes the deck so fun. And sure, I can probably make a comparably good deck with Gatling Gun if I figure out how to deal with confiscation. But why on earth would I abandon Robert Castaigne? This is the best part of the deck, the coolest, the most fun, the thing that fixes your weakness, the most powerful thing. It's interesting and new, and Gatling Gun is just flamethrower and a trench coat, so who cares? That's how I feel about Little Guns Michael versus Big Guns Michael. Seriously, play this. It is the first fighter I played in a while that felt new and interesting. And previously I thought Robert would not work in other fighters, that their card access wouldn't be good enough, that they wouldn't want the fist enough, that it competes too much with dirty fighting. I don't care anymore. I'm figuring out how to make this work. I'll be playing like Charlie Kane, Robert Castaigne, Gun Henchman. I don't know how to make it work, but I am finding another Robert deck that I can be happy about because this guy is wonderful. I'm not hyped about Michael, I'm hyped about Robert. Michael's just how we're getting there. Anyways, that'll be all for now. I've been rather incoherent. I hope you're enthusiastic about the new state of rogue fighting with Luger and Robert. I hope you give Michael a try because Tiny Guns Michael is actually just a cool, fun deck to play. Surprisingly Mythos resilient, I was worried about it. And yeah, that'll be all for now. But before I go, if you made it this far, YouTube algorithm dance, you know the drill. But more importantly, a massive thank you to everyone who supports this channel, both on Patreon as patrons and here on YouTube as channel members. I'll see all of you in the next one.